Why are some people so good at the Rubik's Cube? Well, in this video, I'll be breaking down the techniques and thoughts of every level of speedcubing, from beginner to world class, so you can see what it takes to get faster. Let's start with 5-minute solvers. At this stage, you've just learned how to solve the cube with the beginner's method, which basically involves solving the cube layer by layer. If you want to learn the beginner's method, here's a great tutorial by JPerm. To improve your times to about 1 minute, just do a bunch of practice with the beginner's method. Practice will allow you to get more used to the method and minimize pauses between each step. And eventually you won't have to think about the next step and you can just kind of do it. You can also improve your finger tricks. At the beginning, you likely turn with your wrists, which wastes time because you have to keep regripping the cube for the next turn. Instead, you can think about turning with your fingers. For example, for this algorithm, instead of using your wrists to turn, you can simply just use your fingers instead, like so. To get to 30 seconds, cubers usually switch to a method called CFOP, which stands for cross, F2L or first two layers, OLL and PLL. OLL is just where you do algorithms to solve the top side, and PLL is where you do algorithms to solve everything else. But the main difference between CFOP and the beginner's method is the F2L, where instead of solving all of our corners and all of our edges, we can actually solve a corner and an edge at the same time. To learn CFOP, I would recommend watching some of, once again, JPerm's videos. A full CFOP solve looks like this. We can solve our cross like normal, but now we can solve a corner and an edge at the same time, which is called an F2L pair, which is one of these. And we can make these F2L pairs in a bunch of different ways. For example, if we look at these two pieces, the blue and the red, I can pair them up and then insert them into the front. Or sometimes I can even directly insert them, like so. And there are a bunch of other ways to do it too. Then for OLL and PLL, you will first learn something called for look last layer, which just means you'll be doing 2 algorithms for OLL and then 2 algorithms for PLL. And all these algorithms can be found online. For 15 seconds, cubers really develop what we call look ahead, which is the ability to look ahead to the next step while doing the current step, which eliminates the pause between your current step and the next step and will be really important later on. And at this stage, you can learn 2 look last layer, where you will learn full OLL and full PLL, meaning that we now can do 1 algorithm for OLL and 1 algorithm for PLL. There is 57 algorithms for OLL and 21 for PLL, and at this stage, it's a good idea to learn a lot of these algorithms, but it isn't like a requirement before moving on. So you can continue solving without knowing full OLL and full PLL. The finger tricks also improve a lot at this stage, and cubers learn a bunch of different tricks to improve their solves. For example, there's the U2 flick where we can turn the top layer twice in one motion instead of doing it turn by turn. And you can do that with your pointer followed by your middle finger. Here's also a comparison of a good and bad T-perm, where the better turning doesn't waste time trying to regrip the cube. But what needs to be worked on the most is the F2L. Although cubers at this stage fully understand how F2L works and everything, sometimes there's a bunch of simpler solutions that these cubers don't really know how to do. For example, for this red and blue, some people might try and insert this corner and then set up to this beginner's method case. But instead, you can move the corner to the side, do R, U, R prime, and then set up for this 3-move insert. Or something like this case with the white sticking up and these 2 pieces attached. You can just insert the corner, U prime, and set up to this case. Okay, now things get a little crazy, so bear with me. At 10 seconds, cubers know full OLL and full PLL, all 78 algorithms. And you can also specifically train your last layer in CS Timer. Just go to 3x3 and then select OLL or only PLL, and then you can train those things. And now we get into something called planning cross plus 1, or planning your first pair. Now, if you know me, this is not one of my strong suits, but cross plus 1 is where you use your inspection time to plan your first pair after you do your cross. So for example, for this cross, we see our pieces are here, 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 and here. And our cross is going to be D, R2, F, D2F, which would look like this. And now this is where planning cross plus 1 comes into play. You can kind of visualize after doing your solution where pieces are going to end up. So for example, for this orange and blue pair, if we look at this corner first, if we do a D, the corner comes over here, R2, and the corner will come back here. And then F, D2, F won't affect it. So that piece will end up here. And if you notice, if we do all of those moves, this orange and blue edge stays in place. So once you plan this out, cubers can do their solution and go directly into this orange and blue pair. Sub-10 cubers should at least start learning this skill because in your solves, it will eliminate the pause between cross and your F2L. And it will also eliminate some really bad habits later on, all of which I have. F2L can also still be improved here. And especially at this stage, we can think about setting up for better pairs or choosing the right pair to do. Here's an example. So if we're deciding between the orange and green pair versus the orange and blue pair, a lot of cubers might see this orange and green first and start doing it. But if we switch to this orange and blue, we see that we get an automatic pre-made pair right here. And now here's a sub 10 solve. So overall, we see a decent cross and then some slight pauses between F2L, but overall decent solutions, decent OLL and decent PLL, although recognition can be a little bit better. And in the solve, Cuber missed a much easier solution for this pair, where I took out the edge and tried to do something else, but here I can just do R, U, R2, U prime, R for the back. At 8 seconds, we can take F2L to a whole nother level. Cubers should keep in mind doing those really efficient solutions, but now we can start introducing some even fancier tricks. For example, we can start getting into tricks like keyhole and pseudo slotting. Keyhole is where we use the D layer and kind of keyhole a piece we want into a slot. Like for example, for this green and orange, I can move the D layer aside, put this green-orange edge in like it's solved, and move the D layer back right here. And we can also do the reverse, so we can move the D layer to the side, put this corner in like it's solved to make this block, and then bring the D layer back. And pseudo slotting is where we also use the D layer to basically solve 2 F2L pairs at the same time. And it involves one solved edge and one solved corner. So for this blue and orange and blue and red, all of our pieces are here, and we can basically do like a fake F2L pair. So here we can move the D layer to the side, and then basically do this F2L pair. And by doing that, we put this blue and red into the right spot, and we make this orange and blue block, and then we can move everything back. And faster, it looks like this. And to really improve your F2L, I recommend watching a lot of example solves from fast cubers, and especially a bunch of record reconstructions. Like for example, one time I learned this trick from one of Max Xiao's good solves. It's basically this commutator to solve this green and orange case. It goes like this, and it solves that pair. You can also consider switching to another cross color. I know it's very common among cubers to switch to white and yellow cross, or being dual color neutral, and this just gives you another option in case one cross is really bad. So it can actually really help during official solves. You can also start learning algorithms for different angles. So for example, for this J-perm, you might know this RUL alg, but if you've done OLL and you see that this bar is in a different position, you can actually do a different algorithm. So you can do this lefty one, like this, and if the bar is on the left, you can do this algorithm instead. And it basically saves time because you don't have to orient, then do the algorithm, then do an AUF. You can just do the algorithm and then some AUF. Getting to 6 seconds is about implementing all the things we've talked about previously, but I think with an emphasis on the inspection. At this stage, you'll see cubers consistently planning their cross +1, and a lot of the times they're cross +2, and maybe even beyond, which is something I can only dream of. You can also train planning your first pair with an inspection timer or a cross +1 trainer. Also, I've noticed that a lot of people can do really fancy X-cross stuff, instead of just kind of tracing and looking where pieces go. And X-cross is where you're able to force an F2L pair being solved when your cross is done. So here's an easy example of an X-cross. So our cross is simple D, L2, D2, and I see this block. So we can look for the edge, which is right here, and instead of just doing our cross like so, we can think about this edge. After doing this D, we can bring this piece down, and then once we do D2, that F2L pair is solved. But honestly, for the younger cubers I see, it's pretty much insane turn speed combined with good look ahead, so there's no need to get really crazy or really fancy with your F2L. If you go look at some example solves, I bet you'll be able to understand 90% of what they're doing and not be surprised about these cuber solutions. So here's what some of that solving looks like. Sub 6. I'm not gonna lie, I don't even know how these people really do it, so I'm just gonna mention a bunch of things I see in fast solves. First, I've noticed that a lot of people like being at least dual color neutral, while others have experience in multiple cross colors. Especially today with the younger cubers, white-yellow cross is really common. And when I was halfway into my cubing career, I think color neutral was more popular. So that's something interesting. I've also noticed that these cubers are really good at forcing better F2L cases. You can also learn part of VLS, or Volk last slot, where you basically do an algorithm to solve the last F2L pair and OLL at the same time. There's technically 432 algorithms, but a lot of these algorithms aren't that long. So here's an easy one for you. So here for this easy pair, we can just do a 3-move insert. But before that, we can actually do a sexy move first. And now we can insert the piece and skip OLL. Another easy one is this. Instead of just doing the normal insert again, you can actually do a sledge because it's part of this OLL. And finally, we got the ZB stuff. So the ZB method is where you can force a cross OLL during your last F2L pair, with a ZBLS algorithm and get a last layer ZBLL case where you can finish the last layer in one algorithm. ZBLS has 305 algorithms and ZBLL has 472, so it is a tough thing to learn, but some people do it. It's a thing that Swan Yi and Timo uses. If you've noticed that they completely skip PLL sometimes. It basically just eliminates the need to recognize OLL, do OLL, then recognize PLL, then do PLL. You can just do all of that in one algorithm. Here's an easy ZBLL for you. So for this case, with only these two corners twisted, we can just do a soon from this angle, and then a lefty soon. And that's it. So here's what that all kind of looks like. Okay, maybe not. Let me know in the comments if this was at all helpful to you, and let me know if I missed anything, which I know I did, because making this video, there's so much more to cubing than I thought. I guess I gotta train my cross plus one now.